Hey, how's it going? Today we are going to play some games with the new Dragapult EX deck. Dragapult's obviously not new, but it did get some new cards. Mostly the Sparkling Crystal and Crispin, I think, are the two most impactful cards. Sparkling Crystal says that if we have it attached to a Terra Pokemon, the attacks they use cost 1 energy less of any type, so we can use the tool and just attack for 1 psychic or 1 fire. It's really good. We also have Crispin that lets us grab 2 different types of energy out of our deck, attach one to one of our Pokemon and put the other one in our hand. Energy acceleration's always good, and it also gets the other energy that we'll need. Yeah, it is pretty solid. The Sparkling Crystal seems to be a lot better than the Neo Energy. I was very skeptical about this at first, but just letting you attack off an Arven makes it a lot easier to start attacking. Whereas before you would need Candy Pidgeot, Candy Dragapult, and then Pidgeot for the Neo Energy. This just makes it a lot simpler. We are also playing, of course, Fezandipiti, really broken card, as well as Pidgeot, also a broken card. The final list I played didn't end up having Briar. I was playing Briar for a while. I didn't really get a chance to use it. We can't manipulate the prizes that much. Often our opponent's going to take a single prize at the beginning of the game, so I ended up cutting it, and I cut the Night Stretcher I was playing for a 4th Ultra Ball and a Feather Ball, just trying to set up every game. As long as I get a Pidgeot and a Dragapult out, I found that I was winning almost every game. Now this is the list that I was playing for a lot of it with the Briar and the Night Stretcher. I think it's a little too greedy not having the 4 Ultra Ball, so I think I was playing this for at least one of the games, and I think the second game I was playing the other list. The stadium split is another question I have. I just copied what a lot of people were playing in the league headquarters in the Sinnoh. The Sinnoh is definitely really good. The league headquarters could probably go. A lot of the basic decks are playing a lot of stadiums anyway. I found it doesn't really do much. Maybe I was supposed to use it at the end of the game, but I just didn't really find that I needed that much comeback as long as I was like attacking turn 2, which happened a fair amount of the games. There's also no Manaphy in here. Most people weren't playing the Manaphy. I'm always down to not play Manaphy. And I think it's mostly because if Palkia, they can either Greninja you and knock out both of your things, or if you bench the Manaphy, they're one-shotting your Dragapult with the Kieran really easily anyway, and you probably lose either of those ways. So you kind of just need them to not be able to use Greninja and knock out both of your Dreepies. And we have Alakazam over Radiant Charizard. The Alakazam ended up being really good in the games I played with this deck. It just lets us hit the 210 and 220 mark with our Dragapult. We can also kind of manipulate damage throughout the game to set up big turns, which is really nice. So that is the list. Let's get into the games. Alright, so game 1 we are up against the Palkia Area 0 deck. This is, from all the games that I've played against it so far, it's kind of a hard matchup for Dragapult. You have to be very conscious of how many bench Pokemon you have, because all these Palkia decks are playing the Kieran to add 30 damage to EXs. And I think it's, if you have 4 bench Pokemon as Dragapult, they can Kieran and knock out your Dragapult, and I find that you typically end up losing the games where that happens. Now I just end up Ionoing here. I started the Pidgeot that is not the Call for Family one, so I couldn't even attach and use that attack. I Ionoed. At least I got 2 Dreepies, but it's not looking great for next turn. We really would like to get an energy attachment down and not have to rely on the tool card every game or getting the Crispin to attack. That tends to get a little bit annoying. Now if our opponent has a switch here, we basically lose if they can switch into Greninja and knock out both of our Dreepies, because the only way we have to draw cards right now is the Drakloak in our hand. So yeah, it's not looking too good, but this Dragapult deck is really strong and can make really good comebacks. And you seem to have like a lot of agency over the game. It's just overall pretty nice to play a deck that feels like you can win any matchup as long as you know how to play it and play it right. So I just promote my Dreepy and evolve to Drakloak. I'm going to take the Psychic Energy here because that gives me a better chance of actually attacking this turn. I can Nest Ball for Fezandipiti, and if I draw an Arven, which I end up drawing, I can just get Ultra Ball and the tool card and at least start attacking, which is pretty nice. And the tool card's not prized. I'm not 100% sure if I ended up checking my prize cards earlier during the game. Hopefully I did, but I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to get rid of the Briar here, and maybe it's either Counter Catcher or Psychic Energy. I end up going with the Psychic because I believe I was still playing Night Stretcher and Super Rod at this point, so I should be good to have one of the either Super Rod, my third Psychic, or Night Stretcher in the deck. Now I'm thinking about Counter Catching the Greninja here, but I don't end up doing that. There's really no point right now. They're just gonna end up like knocking out my Drakloak, and they're not like taking two prizes with it. It would set up a knockout on my Dragapult, but they'd also have to retreat off their 2 energy. I guess this deck could be playing a switch. I'm not really too sure. I was super unfamiliar with these Palkia lists at this point, but now if I can get into Alakazam, I can knock out this Palkia off of the bench by moving 2 of the damage off of the barrel over to it and doing 200 to something else and pinging the Palkia. Oh, so it's only 3 Pokemon that if I had 3 bench Pokemon, they would have knocked me out with Kieran. So this Palkia damage ramps pretty quickly. Now I used Drakloak here before the Iono because I wanted to just get a card to Earthen Vessel away. But I end up getting into Buddy-Buddy Poffin, which is kind of the card that I wanted to get more basics down, but I end up vesseling it away anyway. Now I'm debating if I want to Counter Catcher the Fez or just Counter Catcher the Greninja like I was saying earlier, or even like a Terapagos. And I end up going with the Greninja, and I do get into the Alakazam, which is pretty nice. Now by benching all these Pokemon, if they're able to get their Kieran back, that's going to put me in a pretty rough spot. But, oh no, because they don't have their Palkia. I just kind of, brain fart there a little bit, but I'm getting rid of their Palkia. That's why I'm not super worried about benching all the Pokemon. I do end up messing this up in other games that I played, thinking it was just 3 Pokemon that I could have benched without getting knocked out, but it is only 2. Should probably just take the time to do the math when I'm playing it and not just assume that I remember the number. They promote the Phantom Rotom. This card is really good. They're going to be able to knock me out with its attack for 1 energy. I'm not really like too sure what the card designers have been thinking lately, but giving this Phantom Rotom the ability that it has and letting it do 1 energy, 70 damage for 1 energy as long as there's a stadium in play is kind of insane. And that just ends up making it like a really good starter too against evolving decks, because you can just start it, get your whole board set up, and take a knockout for 1 energy. It is pretty strong. Alright, so they knocked me out. I want to get a Pidgeot out here, but mostly I just need to get a Dragapult, and I would like to also probably boss their Palkia up and knock it out. That is the only real threat to knocking out my Dragapult, and I think that is probably the only way that I lose the game at this point. I am already down my tool card, and I don't know, I could use Crispin if I end up getting out a new Dragapult next turn, but I think I'm going to have a hard time if they Iono me and knock out my Dragapult, so I'm just going to start by digging for cards. With the Forest, I am pretty like good to go. I can just Forest for my Pidgeot for Dragapult, and Alakazam the damage over to the Palkia and boss it up and knock it out, and I can just kind of spread the damage around to make it so that I can knock out whatever next turn. I have Lumineon in my hand for another boss. The only downside to this play is that it's going to put me out of counter catcher range, which is kind of unfortunate, but I don't know. I want to kill that Palkia before it can KO me. I could probably just put 30 on both the Terrapagos, and then that way I can knock either of those out. Now I can knock out any Pokemon in the field, basically, unless they KO my Alakazam, and that would only make it so I can't knock out Fezandipiti, which isn't a big deal because they're not going to be attacking with that. They do end up prime catching up my Rotom. Looks like they're just going to go on their last stand, I guess, take their final 2 prizes. And my one Iono card is Boss, which is kind of funny. Doesn't matter, I kind of prepared for this with the 30 damage. And now I can just promote my Dragapult and knock out this Terrapagos. Oh, they end up conceding before I can even do it. Alright, so this game we are up against a Dark deck, and looks like we're going second. I have like a good enough starting hand here, I guess. I would definitely like a little bit more. There's a couple different ways that I could end up playing this out. I could Poffin and then Ultra Ball for Rotom and draw a couple of cards. I do the Poffin first, of course, to check what is in my deck. I could also Ultra Ball for Lumineon. I forget about that so often. I'm so used to not playing decks that play Lumineon. But I do end up just going for the Rotom. Maybe I could have just gotten Lumineon though. I don't know. Not too sure about that. Maybe I didn't even notice it, but rewatching it back, like, oh, I could just grab Lumineon and get Iono or something, but the Rotom ends up paying off pretty good. Now I've got Candy Dragapult, attach the tool, and just hope that I get into an energy off the Iono. They immediately bump my headquarters, which is kind of unfortunate. I was hoping that that would kind of stick them for a turn without any good attack. I wonder if they're going to try to attack with the baby Roaring Moon. That would kind of make sense. That'd be a good play by them. Putting one of their 2 prizers in the line of fire for no reason, just to knock out a Pidgey, doesn't really make the most sense. But it does look like that's what they're going to do. They're going to hit my Pidgey, my poor little Pidgey, for 260 damage. I guess he deserved it. He evolves into a very broken card. So, I don't know. I don't know if that Rotom play was really the best play. I probably should have gotten, like, probably Iono, maybe Arven. I'm not sure. Whatever, we're here now. And I can just attach my crystal, Nest Ball for a new Pidgey, and Iono. And if I don't get the energy, I have the Forest Seal Stone because they gave me the town store, which is pretty nice. I do get the fire, so I don't even have to burn my my forest. It always feels really good when that ability can be saved for as long as possible. As long as they don't just knock it out next turn, which a deck like this, I wouldn't really be surprised if it did. I don't know. Thinking about that, maybe I should just forest for a Pidgey out here. It's not really the end of the world if I don't though, because I already have Ultra Ball in hand. Now I put the 10 on the Fezandipiti. That's really the only 10 damage that I think matters. So I just pile the rest on the Greninja as sort of like Alakazam, like damage bank kinda. I've been really liking the Alakazam in this deck. I think a lot of them end up playing Radiant Charizard, but I was looking at the Japanese list for this set. That's kind of like where I got the inspiration for this, and they were all playing the Alakazam, or at least a lot of them were. And after trying it out, it is really good. Just being able to do that 10 or 20 extra damage with Dragapult comes in clutch so many times. Now my opponent plays a Nest Ball here. I do think that they end up getting a Roaring Moon if I remember correctly, which kind of makes sense, I guess. That's the only way to knock out my Dragapult, but if they do that, they're getting, I think I could take a 6 prize turn next turn if they were to do that, because they'd put 200 on themselves. I counter catcher the Fezandipiti. I could get Alakazam, move damage over. I actually wouldn't need to. Now that I'm looking at it, I would have enough damage. So yeah, that would be a terrible idea. And they do end up knocking out my Rotom, it looks like. which is kind of unfortunate. I maybe should have just burned the forest, knowing that a deck like this is pretty unlikely to Iono me, especially when they'd be setting my hand to 6 cards. They're even less likely to do it. Right now, I'm not sure what my goal is going to be for this turn. I use Drakloak first. I'm thinking about just grabbing something to Ultra Ball away for my Pidgeot. But now I can Iono and set their hand to 3 cards. Yeah, this was kind of stupid. I used Town Store. That's not the stupid part. I was thinking that I still had Gravity Stone in the deck and that I was going to grab that and Ultra Ball it away. But I don't even think I ever played any games with that yet. And now I'm going to counter catcher their Fezandipiti to kind of cut off their draw. And I did get the Alakazam, so now I can kind of spread my damage a little more how I want to. I use Quick Search before I play down the Alakazam so that they don't really know what I got from it. If I play down the Alakazam and then use Quick Search evolve to Drakloak, they know exactly what I got. In the grand scheme, that doesn't really matter in this situation, but it's just like good practice to do. That way on the turns that you end up using your Quick Search for something you want to hold, your opponent is less likely to know that you kept a card in your hand. I evolve up into the Dragapult. I don't know if I really needed to do that. I just figure now I'm in a really good spot to basically guaranteed attack next turn. All I need is a Psychic Energy. And they'd have to also knock out my active Dragapult and my Pidgeot to stop me from doing that. So now I'm just going to knock out their Fezandipiti. I put 3 on the Roaring Moon because now they can't use their gouging attack without just losing the game to me. And they did show me an Ancient Booster Capsule earlier, I'm pretty sure, but I can't put enough damage on that on the moon to make that relevant anyway. Like, I can't put 9 damage counters on it. They do Roxanne me, which is fine. I think I should be good to just Pidgeot for boss here. I should still have a boss left and just knock out the Petrunt or the Roaring Moon. These big basic decks are a pretty good matchup for Dragapult. I've been noticing in the games that I've played. My opponent, Earthen Vessels, I don't know exactly what they were looking for there, but they do end up conceding. That's kind of irrelevant though. I was going to win next turn no matter what. I was going to Pidgeot for boss and knock out one of the bench 2 prizers. Even if I didn't have the boss, I could just knock out the active Roaring Moon, and I think I could have moved 2 damage over to the Greninja and knocked that out, or just taken my last 2 prizes one at a time. It wouldn't really matter. They are not going to win the game next turn anyway. But that is the new Dragapult deck. I think it's like a lot better than it was before. I didn't think that the tool card was really all that good or was going to make a difference, but the tool and Crispin have made quite a bit of difference. I didn't get to use Crispin in either of those games, but definitely in several of the other games I played, I got pretty good use out of it. A lot of those games just ended up being like really one-sided and kind of boring, so I didn't want to put those ones up. But yeah, that's the deck. Like or dislike, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.